Hi, everyone. I'm Katie McLean, and I'm the CEO of Tusk Hub. Today, we're talking about the growth movement, and we have as our guest today, Vicki Bradley, and our subject is curiosity. One of my favorite subjects, actually. Vicki is the CEO of Will Empowered, a leadership program for women, and also an executive coach. And she's here today again to talk about curiosity. Welcome, Vicki.
Thank you, Katie. I'm so excited to be here. So it's a privilege, and I love talking about curiosity as well. So it's a great topic for both of us.
That's great. Okay. Well, maybe you could just start out and just tell us a bit about your leadership background and your philosophies around management and how curiosity kind of plays into that.
Sure, I would love that. So, as you said, I have a very extensive background in retail as an executive. I was president of the Bombay Furniture Company for almost 10 years, worked for Marks and Spencer's, Holt Renfrew, and then eventually I came on this journey of becoming an executive coach. And the reason I did that, Katie, is because all my years as being a leader myself, I saw the importance of being influential and developing people and really helping people see their full potential. And one of the things I learned very quickly in my career, when I first became a multi-unit supervisor, I would go into the stores, I would have the same conversations every single day. And then I realized this is not working for me. Like, I'm exhausted and I'm burnt out. And why is that happening? And it was literally like a light bulb. And all of a sudden, I knew I had to change the way I was doing things as a leader. And so I started getting curious. Like, why am I going in and having the same conversations and thinking I'm going to get a different result? I think there's something to do with insanity, right?
Yep.
So I really started focusing on how to be curious with my teams and asking questions like, what's working, what's not working, but also with our customers, because sometimes we forget that, the customers tell us everything we need to know. And so I took that same philosophy and utilized it with the customers that came in the stores, with my teams, so that I could learn. But what I found through those experiences is that our people became more engaged, because the more I asked questions and the more I was curious about what worked, what didn't work, how to inspire them, I realized they were becoming part of the solution versus part of the problem. And so it wasn't about them changing, it was more about me changing the way I approached it. And so curiosity has become really important to me in all aspects, even with the way I connect and network with people, asking questions about who they are, what motivates them, what inspires them. So I use curiosity a lot with leadership, but in all aspects of my life.
That's really interesting. I mean, when you think about if someone takes an interest in you by asking you questions, that's actually almost the definition of being charming. People gravitate towards people that have an interest in them. And so that would work for both, clients and employees, right? Did you notice a big difference when you switched the way you did things when you were at the Bombay company?
Oh, 100%, 100%. And at first it was scary for people because they were like, why is she asking me all these questions? Right? They were like, are you interrogating me? And so I had to, calm them down that no, I'm genuinely curious. I want to understand how we can work smarter, how we can work easier, better. Like, my job was to make their jobs better. And they just weren't accustomed to that.
Mm-hmm.
And even in today's environment, Katie, I use this with my clients, especially those in leadership roles, because they will come to me and say, Vicki, I'm tired of, my employees not being accountable, or, I feel like I repeat myself all the time. And I think I shared with somebody earlier that I had a client today that, she kept saying this to me. And I'm like, okay, so when you go back to your people and you tell them, sure, it's easy. But when you're telling people what to do, they just check out, right? Because they're checking the
Yeah.
box. Okay, we'll just get it done. But when you start asking and you're holding people accountable to start thinking more creatively and innovatively and being critical in their thinking, you get them more engaged because then they know their responsibility is to come with solutions. And you have a much richer conversation because you are curious, right? But you're giving them permission to be more creative. And the importance of how they feel, they become much more engaged, they're much more loyal to the organization, because they feel that responsibility of I'm part of making this work. And as leaders, that helps you elevate, right? You're elevating your people, you elevate yourself, because when you're just telling, and I think I shared a little bit of an example with you on the flip side of that coin, when you hold things too closely to your chest and you're afraid to share with your people, then what happens is you actually in the long run end up crumbling, right? Because people become disengaged and they're like, well, why am I even here? What's the point of me being here? And so that curiosity helps to open things up and it gets people feeling like they really have a voice. And so the engagement is much more solid and important, and the productivity you gain is far greater than when you just get people to tick the boxes. And I like to ask my clients, like, what would you do or what would your people do if you got hit by a train today, right? You've got to teach them to be thinking curiously themselves even. And that has a ripple effect because it goes to your customers, it goes to your families. In all things that you're doing, you naturally start building that muscle for curiosity, and it becomes a habit, it becomes part of your DNA.
I love that idea. And then, coming up with the right questions is always an interesting challenge, right? And excuse me. And I think in levels of engagement, I always like to try to start with the easiest questions and gradually, dig a little bit deeper. And that came from one of my girlfriends who's a reporter for a national newspaper. And every time I saw her, she'd go, well, what'd you have for breakfast? And I'm like, why does that even matter? And but then I'd start talking about my breakfast, and I might talk about, what my kids had done at breakfast and then how it was whatever. And so it was kind of a really great way to engage. And so I started to try to do that a little bit more with my family and my kids, because asking my kids when they got home from school how their day was would meet like, oh, it was good, thanks. But if I asked them what they had for lunch, because lunch means a lot when you're in school, right? You get really hungry in the morning. And they would start talking about their lunch. And again, then they would start elaborating. The problem was when I started asking those questions when my husband was like in the car with us, and he would start answering them. But it was meant to engage the kids. And often they were very simple questions that I would ask that I knew the answers to, for example, and he would answer them for me. So it was funny.
That is fun. We got everybody engaged.
Yeah, it's good. Like, questions are amazing. And in terms of additional creativity, because you're hearing the answers to those questions, any comments on things that happen because you asked the questions? Ideas for the company, for example?
Yeah. So, when you're asking questions, it really does create more of a collaboration, right? Yep. And so what happens is you bring this collectiveness of wisdom together versus one person's idea, right? And we both know that, one person they can start an idea, but when you expand on it, it can go from great to amazing and fabulous, right?
I love that. So can you comment on how curiosity can promote growth in a company? Like, just how will it affect the bottom line? Will the company actually grow faster because of that? Yeah.
Well, that's a really great question, Katie. And I can't say that you necessarily grow faster, but you grow more productively, if that makes sense. Yeah. Because when you first get curious and you start asking questions, people are like, whoa, why are you asking so many questions? Right? Because they're not used to it necessarily. Because traditional leadership, most people think it's telling, right? Yep. So when all of a sudden you do this 360 and you start asking questions, people get nervous thinking, if I've done something wrong, and so you culturally, you're getting people to trust that you're asking these questions for a reason and that you're genuinely interested in learning their thought process. Once you've made that switch and people become accustomed to that, your productivity increases substantially, but your turnover reduces substantially as well.
Okay.
Right? Because you're teaching people that they're important, and almost all of us want to feel that we belong, right? That's just human nature. It's that safety and stability and security, knowing that this organization or this family wants you to be part of it. And so you gain growth and productivity in lots of different ways in an organization. So, my experiences with the companies that I've ran myself, it has been, we've been super successful because of it. And I spend a lot of time in my practice, whether it's Women in Leadership Empowered or my executive leadership coaching that I do, with really helping leaders understand the importance of that, because you're also building trust when you're getting curious. So hopefully that answers that question. But it's a long-term cultural shift in how you address things. And this is so important because once you teach it to your people in your organization on the inside, that ripple effect goes to the external customers that you have. So it does become a long-term positive impact on the organization.
Long-term sustainable growth. I love
Absolutely.
it. Okay. Well, thank you, Vicki. I appreciate your time today. It's been amazing talking to you, and keep in touch with us. I love your ideas.
Thank you, Katie. Thanks for having me.
No problem.